The super middleweight division is getting more and more interesting as the young fighters who are coming along under the title holder, and they're looking to have separation. When we talk about super middleweights Darius Fulghum and David Stevens, they both entered Saturday, November 8th, super middleweight bout with something to prove. And the one thing that they were able to prove is that the two of them were not good enough to best the other. And so they ended this fight with a majority decision draw. It is time for these men to make some decisions about their careers going forward. Let's talk about this fight and what may be in the cards for both men going forward. Saturday, November 8th card featuring as the main event, Virgil Ortiz Jr. versus Erickson Lubin, had a co-main that brought some interesting revelations for young fighters who were facing one another. And that was when we had a chance to see Darius Fulghum taking on David Stevens. Now, these two men entered the fight both having had some setbacks in their careers previously. When you think about Stevens, he has 2 losses on his record to go with his 15 wins and 10 KOs. He's fighting out of Philadelphia. He's 5'11 and a half and an orthodox fighter. He's 25 years of age, nicknamed Dynamite. He has 1 draw on his record. You see, Stevens was brought in as an opponent for Fulghum. But Fulghum, coming off of a victory after he had dropped a decision, has a record now of 14-1 with 1 draw. The draw, of course, being against Stevens. Now he's 29, fighting out of Houston, Texas. He's an orthodox fighter, 6'1", very rangy. Out of his 14 victories, he has 12 KOs. And when he entered Saturday's fight as the so-called proverbial A-side, they thought that he would be able to come out and jump on Stevens and establish himself as being a winner all over again, because his previous fight against Bektemir Melikuziev, Beck the Bully. He lost a unanimous 12-round decision. And Fulghum was down in the 12th round of that fight. They fought in Las Vegas. You see, Fulghum had been a guy that they were touting as trying to position to get toward a title. But when you can't get beyond the one-dimensional Beck the Bully, there's something to be said. But alas, David Stevens had faced Beck the Bully as well. And in his matchup against Beck the Bully, he found himself losing a split decision. That fight was fought in Vegas as well. And see, now that they have a common opponent here, you have to look at what these two men were able to do against one another. Fulghum started the bout out boxing, taking the fight to Stevens, and he was hitting him with solid shots, but he began to start winging his shots as the shorter Stevens opted to get closer and get in his chest. Once he began to do that, it was readily apparent that Fulghum was very uncomfortable with the range and distance there. And trainer Ronnie Shields was able to point this out to Stevens as he got close to Fulghum, who is not comfortable fighting on the inside and had lost the advantage of establishing distance with his jab. So, as Stevens got closer, Fulghum looked to tie up. Stevens was working the free hand and scoring points. The fight began to shift after roughly, I want to say, the 6th round. That was the last round I had given to Fulghum. Now, what ended up happening, Stevens began to outwork Fulghum on the inside. And Fulghum never made a second adjustment. And as the fight went on, you could see that Stevens' confidence began to grow as he outworked Fulghum. Now, Fulghum also began to get fatigued. All that wrestling and holding, you can learn to rest with your jab, young man. But he wasn't able to do so. And that's why Stevens closed the gap and pretty much swept the later rounds, particularly 8 through 10. And as it ended up, he got the majority decision draw out of the situation. Now, what I liked was the two men faced one another with hardship, struggle. There was a battle of fortitude in there. Personally, I think these two should face one another again in a rematch. Run it back right away, because the two of them need to show separation, one over the other. And because this fight was split, I actually had Stevens winning the fight 7 rounds to 4. 6 rounds to 4. And Fulghum needed to step things up, and he never did it. Is it because he doesn't have a second gear to go to? Or is it because his people didn't stress the urgency of how he needed to do something to swing the tide back in his favor? Nonetheless, whatever the deal is, both men can run this back and will be better off as a result of facing each other in a rematch to show that they can make adjustments, because that's what it's going to take to be able to make that step to the next level. Stevens, a couple of years younger, being 25, he can work things out. But he's not the man that came in as the favorite. So something is going to have to be done by both men. Will they make those changes and adjustments? It remains to be seen. But what do you think? This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what your thoughts are about these two men who got it on. And do you think that a rematch will make a difference? Will one be able to prevail over the other? Leave comments and let's discuss further. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.